organ competition, which was my first opportunity to play that incredible instrument under that kind of pressure cooker situation of an international competition. That was a thrill for me. The audience thought I should have won first place that year, but the judges gave me third. However, that experience of playing in the competition led to David Davidson, who is the former symphony chorus director, inviting me to play a concert on the series at Highland Park Presbyterian. And that then led to a job opportunity when I finished graduate school. David and I became best of friends and worked very closely together there at Highland Park Presbyterian and then at Highland Park United Methodist until he was taken from us too soon in the fall of 2009. And I remember David saying to me one day, he said, you know, if you stick around here long enough, he said, I think someday you might be able to be organist in the Dallas Symphony. And of course, we were both great friends of Mary, and I said, well, that'll be 50 years from now. Mary is one of my heroes. She is a good friend. When she announced her retirement about 6 years ago, I, along with a few others, had the opportunity to fill in that role with the orchestra for different performances. And then I was offered the position about 4 years ago. And so it really is for me a dream come true from those early days of hearing the instrument and hoping so badly that I could someday hear it live to now being, as part of my role, the curator of the instrument to make sure that it stays in A+ condition as a kind of jewel landmark here in the Dallas cultural scene.
Amazing. That's such an amazing story, and we are really so lucky and pleased to have you with us in this position. You really are such a wonderful asset for the whole organization. And bravo talking through the phone. That is the skill a musician learns from a young age. Your teacher tells you at a young age, just no matter what happens, if something explodes in the back of the hall, keep going. So bravo to you. So speaking of, you know, this is also, I was a pianist before I moved into management, and I have to tell you, it is a completely different instrument. Right. I mean, at one point, somebody told me, oh, well, you're a pianist, so you should be able to go up and play the organ. And I was like, nope, totally different instrument. It's basically like you asked me to play the tuba.
3 easy lessons. I can
But I am curious to know, you know, you just talked about how you came to the Dallas Symphony Orchestra and how you became a resident organist. But at what point, when you were a young boy, did you decide, yeah, I'm going to be an organist?
I remember this very clearly. So the church where I grew up had a music week in the summer, kind of like Vacation Bible School, but we would learn how to play handbells and orff instruments. We'd sing in a choir. And at the end of the week, we would take a field trip to an area church that had a pipe organ, because at that time our church did not. And the organist would demonstrate the organ. And I remember it was just before I turned 9 years old. We took this field trip, saw a new installation of a new pipe organ. The organist had the organ console pulled right out in the center of the chancel area. He had pipes that he blew through. He had the lights on in the organ chambers so you could see a lot of the pipes kind of back behind the facade. And then he played some pedal solos with his feet alone, not using his hands at all. And I remember just being blown away by the physical coordination, that aspect of playing notes with one's feet, but also the huge variety of sound. And of course, it could play really loud. That was very exciting for a young person. But I remember being taken by that, and then started piano lessons soon after that. And then fast forward about 4 years, I got a call from the children's choir director at our church who said, we're doing an anthem this coming Sunday, and there's a flute part, but our flutist has gotten sick, and so we're wondering if you could play the flute part on the organ. And so I thought, well, I'm game to do that. There's just one single line, and I thought I could do this. And so the organist met with me, showed me a few things about the organ. I went to the church, and I would practice this little quiet flute line on full organ, enjoying the power of the instrument, and did that, and then thought, I'd like to learn more about this. And so that was kind of the genesis of my organ career.
Amazing. That's a great story. I love that. And I got to hear you, because I've obviously just recently started, I got to hear you perform at the beginning of this season for the Copeland,
Yes.
which was absolutely spectacular. I mean, truly spectacular.
Wonderful piece.
How was it to work with Fabio?
Oh, it was wonderful. Yeah, I mean, he's at the pinnacle in terms of the musicians and the conductors in the world right now, and it's just fabulously wonderful that we have him here in Dallas. He was great. It's a complicated piece, not often performed because it is so complicated. There are lots of tricky things in terms of getting the organ and orchestra together in terms of ensemble, and all of that is made more difficult at the Meyerson because the organ pipes and the organist, I am so far away from the conductor and the orchestra. And so I asked one of my connections there at the symphony if the maestro would like to meet ahead of time for us to talk about tempos, and he said no, that wouldn't be necessary, and I thought, okay. And it really was quite amazing, but not surprising at all how easily things pulled together. It's not only wonderful to work with someone who is so clear in that regard, but who can make music from the first downbeat, and I think that's just a great thrill.
That's completely accurate. It's wonderful. Well, I have just one last question for you, and then can turn it over to the floor for some questions. We have a very exciting concert coming up with you this coming Sunday at 3 o'clock.
Yes.
I know initially it was supposed to be a different program, and sadly we had to make changes to that, so you no longer have 100 singers around you. But we were so fortunate that, as we told Bradley, that we had to make that program change. He was quick and ready to substitute it with other stuff. So can you tell us a little bit about the program that you planned for?
Certainly. So as Katie mentioned, we were going to be performing the Requiem by Maurice Duruflé, which is one of my favorite works. Quite a substantial organ part, and it's a magical piece. So in place of that, I decided, well, we still need a bit of Duruflé on the concert. So I'll open the program with a set of variations he wrote on Veni Creator Spiritus, Come Creator Spirit. When I play an organ program anywhere, I like to show off the huge range of the instrument, the range of dynamics, how soft and loud it can play, as well as all of the different kinds of colors that it can create, string and flute and reed colors. And so I always look for ways to showcase that. One of the things that's so exciting about this instrument is it creates this kind of overwhelming wall of sound when it needs to, and we all know that it can do that. But we don't often get to hear those subtleties in concerts. So I wanted to show all of that off. I'll be doing another set of variations on a little Lutheran Christmas tune. I should play an improvisation on that ringtone. And then I'll be doing a trio sonata of J.S. Bach, which means there are 3 lines of music, one in the right hand, one in the left hand, and one in the feet. And it's incredibly beautiful chamber music to be played all by one person. They also are kind of the steps to perfection in organ playing. They are the most difficult pieces in the repertoire, but they sound quite charming and lighthearted. So come listen for that. And then I'm going to do a set of 3 pieces by Charles-Marie Widor and Louis Vierne, 2 of the giants of the French 19th century organ scene, movements from their organ symphonies. And then the whole program will conclude with one of my favorite works by the Belgian composer Joseph Jonget, his Sonata Heroica, which is just a fabulously heroic piece that shows every color on the instrument and everything from the softest whisper to that devastating wall of sound that it can create so excitingly.
I'm really looking forward to it and hope you'll all be able to join us this Sunday at 3 o'clock for it. It'll be really special, very much so. So we have a mic at the back ready to go, which is fabulous. Thank you so much. Yes, we have one question. There first. We'll go there first.
Will you tell all of us about how fabulous the organ is, how many pipes, what's the range, the size, where they're made? Some of us have heard the Addams Family.
Yes, for some of the children's concerts, yes.
Not all of them, so anyway.
Yes, so the instrument was built in, it was installed and completed in 1992 by the Charles B. Fisk Organ Company of Gloucester, Massachusetts. It has 4,535 pipes. So sometimes people will sit there during concerts and they'll count and they'll say, I see that organ has 67 pipes. They'll say, oh, there's a lot more than that. Ranging in size from about this big to 3 sets of pipes that are 32 feet in length. It really is a landmark instrument. And it's amazing how it remains to be a landmark instrument. And it inspired a lot of other orchestras when they began construction of new symphony halls or were renovating their own halls to install organs. So Los Angeles was one of those that installed an instrument. Chicago renovated their instrument. Cleveland also. So Dallas really was a trendsetter in that way, and it's just amazing. It's an amazing instrument in the way that it can fit into the orchestral texture, but also stand apart in quite an exciting way. And someone mentioned something about tuning it. So normally, I'm not the one tuning it, I'm the one writing down what needs to be tuned. But we do have an excellent technician here locally who takes care of it. And quite literally, every single one of those pipes occasionally needs some loving care to be tapped back into tune. And it's a very exacting process. Especially the smaller the pipe is, the tinier the amount of adjustment that needs to be made.
How do they get to that?
So she asked, do you have to use a cherry picker to get to the pipes? The instrument was so well engineered that there is really fine access within the organ chambers to climb ladders and to have access to tune the pipes. The big facade pipes that are out in front are the ones that would be more difficult to access, but even those can be accessed from within the organ. Yes. Yes.
Hi there. Could you explain more about how you play with just the pedals? What does the score look like? And how does that work?
Great question. So normally with piano, there's a treble clef and a bass clef. And for most organ music, it adds another bass clef below that. And that bottom bass clef is what's to be played with the feet, because most of the time the feet are playing bass notes, the lowest part of the texture. And I have to wear special shoes to play the organ. I wear, not these, but a pair of organ master shoes, which have a very soft leather sole, kind of like jazz shoes, and then a raised heel so that I can play notes both with my heel and with my toe. And, you know, it really is like patting your head, rubbing your tummy, and chewing gum, and whistling Dixie all at the same time. But that's one of the greatest challenges with the organ is that coordination. And then you add into that stop changes, you know, changing the sounds, pressing pistons to change those sounds, and then operating the swell boxes to open, let out more of the sound, or to close it down to make the sound softer. It's kind of like, well, an airplane pilot watched me play one time, and he said, you know, you would be a good pilot. I should take you up in a plane sometime. And I said, you know, but if I make a mistake in an organ concert, no one dies.
My question is, do your children play organ or flute or other instruments?
So our kids, we have Ethan, who is 12, and Avery, who is 7. And both of them like to come up after church and play around on the organ at our church. Neither of them has really studied piano or organ. Our son has taken marimba lessons and is currently taking oboe from Aaron Hannigan.
Wow.
And so I said, you know that you're starting at the top. And then our daughter Avery is the one who from an early age kind of was transfixed by music. Whenever she would hear mommy practicing flute or me practicing piano, she would kind of get this glassy look in her eye. And she loves piano. She's kind of so far just been improvising, making up sounds. But we're going to get her involved probably in piano sometime soon. You know, I thought maybe I could teach her, but it doesn't work so well for parents to teach.
So, I'm just wondering if you could let us know about like where the lay family organ ranks in the world. I know the Highland Park Presbyterian Church organ is a great organ, but like, where do we rank?
Well, I would say it's right up there at the top, of course. You know, Dallas is an incredible organ scene. Highland Park Presbyterian, Park Cities Presbyterian, Highland Park United Methodist. I mean, there are lots of great instruments by different builders. In fact, when I'm consulting for churches who are looking to put in a new pipe organ, and I'll mention 4 or 5 builders, I'll say, well, come to Dallas, and you can, it's kind of like a giant shopping mall. You can go sample all of these different ones. The lay family organ is one of a kind. It really is. And I think in that regard, as a symphony hall instrument, it's at the top. I'm biased, of course, but it really is at the top.
Because we do have so many organ instruments in the city, do you have a lot of young students coming up who are interested in playing the organ and want to continue that as a career?
That's a great question. So I don't have a lot of young students personally, although I'm always so happy when children at church will come up afterwards to see the organ. You know, normally our gut reaction is, no, don't touch that, it's expensive. But I always say, no, come up here, let me scoot the bench up, try this out, try this sound. because that's how I first got interested. And I figure if we can plant those seeds early on, that's an important thing. I've taught some at SMU, and I've taught some at Baylor, and occasionally give master classes around the country. And I really do feel like the organ as an instrument is alive and well. I think there's been some consolidation in recent years where smaller schools with smaller organ departments have closed those departments, whereas a lot of the larger programs, really most of the big universities in Texas being among those, have continued to thrive. So the landscape is changing, and with some churches switching more to contemporary worship and away from organ-led, organ-driven worship in traditional settings, that changes the demand side in a certain respect. Yet at the same time, I think there's still great need for great young organists. And whenever I go to one of those schools with a thriving program, you see that it's alive and well. So I'm always glad to do whatever I can as a performer or a teacher to continue to cultivate that.
When you were at Highland Park United Methodist, were you involved in the selection? I thought you were.
Yes.
Well, we think it's wonderful.
It
What
is.
do you have?
It is. So the organ at Highland Park United Methodist, yes, we canvassed a wide variety of builders and narrowed it down and eventually decided on Dobson pipe organs of Lake City, Iowa. And so David Davidson and I worked very closely with the folks at Dobson, along with Chris Brunt, my colleague, the organist there. We worked very closely to design that instrument, and then I supervised the voicing and installation of it. It's a phenomenal instrument. It's interesting, and I'll brag on the Fisk at the Meyerson in this regard. There were some aspects of construction that I took the Dobson crew downtown and I said, I want this stop to sound exactly like this organ, and I'd like this feature to sound exactly like that. And of course, they were excited to have that as a template, knowing if they could just make it sound like that, that they would have a winner. And so it's exciting when we can stand on the shoulders of giants in that regard and have work that continues to inspire future generations of builders and construction in that regard. Yes?
I don't have the microphone, so okay.
Will this be our last question?
Very quick question, it's a one answer. I know we have a fabulous organ at the Meyerson, but I was wondering in your travels and teachings, what is the most spectacular organ you've ever played?
Oh, wow. That's hard to narrow down. So the organ that I played when I was in graduate school at Yale University in Woolsey Hall is phenomenal. And it's one of the only other instruments that has that kind of jaw-dropping impact that the one at the Meyerson has. I also, I grew up watching television broadcasts of the Hour of Power of the Crystal Cathedral in Garden Grove, California. That's now a Catholic cathedral, the Christ Cathedral. That instrument was removed and cleaned and was being reinstalled and revoiced when the pandemic hit. And so there was quite a delay, but that instrument is playing again. I had the opportunity to play it when I just graduated from high school. And that's one that's just phenomenal. But I've also played lots of small instruments that are quite remarkable. That's part of my job as an organist. And I think is something maybe more than any other instrument is exciting about being an organist is each organ is so different from another that the opportunity to go, it's kind of like speed dating. You know, you have to get to know this instrument as quickly as possible and highlight all its good features and hide the ones that maybe aren't quite as successful. And there's always something to love about every instrument. And it's just a joy when I can play an instrument like the one at the Meyerson, where everything is wonderful.
Thank you. So much. We appreciate you being here with us today. And I know you're probably been in some rehearsals, but thank you for taking the time to be with us. I hope everyone will go and get tickets for this weekend. This just happened by chance that Bradley was asked to be here, and then his concert was this Sunday. So it gives us a great opportunity. We know who he is. Most of us see the backside of him when we do go to concerts. So I told him this morning, it was really nice to see his face. So thank you for being here and joining with us today. So thank you very much. So we're going to start the business portion of the